If you just finished setting up Proxmox, Docker, or a NAS, and you're staring at a blank dashboard and wondering what to actually run on it, this is where most people start. In this video, I'll walk you through the software that makes a home lab worth having, what to install first, what can wait, and how to access everything remotely once it's set up. This is building on top of that last video that went over the hardware and operating system choices and is a continuation of that. So check that out if you're interested in hardware options. I'll also have a bunch of tutorials in the description for the services we're going to be going over in this video. Before we get to that, I want to discuss the most common mistakes I see beginners make in this area. People find a list of 40 self-hosted applications, they start to install everything, and then they wonder why nothing feels stable. I want to be clear that more containers does not mean a better home lab. It just means more things that can break. The goal here is to start with services you're actually going to open every week, things that replace something you're already using or solve a real problem you have, and everything else can wait. So let's start with the fun stuff because honestly, this is where I think most people are going to start anyway. If you have a movie or TV collection sitting on a hard drive somewhere, Jellyfin or Plex turns that into a proper streaming library. You get a clean interface, metadata, posters, watch history, just about all of it. And it works on just about all of your devices as well. Jellyfin is fully open source and free, while Plex has a free tier, but there are features that you have to buy through a subscription. Either way, this is usually the first place that people are going to start, and it's what makes a home lab generally feel worth it because you set it up and immediately have something useful. The other media app that I'd put in the same category is Immich. If you've never heard of it, it's a self-hosted photo backup and browsing application. Think of it kind of like Google Photos, but running on your own hardware. Your photos never leave your network, there's no subscription, and the mobile application handles automated backups. For a lot of people, this is the most useful self-hosted application, period, because it solves a real problem that almost everyone has. The interface is genuinely good and it's come a long way in a short amount of time. If you have a family with phones full of photos and you don't love the idea that all of that lives on someone else's servers, Immich is worth setting up early. Next up are network services, and if I'm being honest, these are a little less exciting, but they quietly make everything better. Pi-hole or AdGuard Home is one of the easiest quality of life upgrades you can make. You run it on your network, point your router's DNS to it, and it blocks ads and trackers for every single device on your network. So phones, TVs, laptops, everything without installing anything on those devices. The best part about it is that you set it up and then you mostly forget about it. But it improves the day-to-day experience of being on your network in a way that's hard to go back from. Internal DNS kind of goes hand in hand with that. Once you have more than a couple services running, remembering what IP address belongs to what service can get tiring. To fix that, internal DNS lets you assign names to services, so instead of typing an IP address and port, you basically just type something like jellyfin.home and immediately go to that service. In general, it makes everything feel organized, and Pi-hole and AdGuard Home both have built-in DNS, so if you're already running one of those, you can handle this all in the exact same place. To be clear, it's not something that most beginners think about on day one. But once you set it up, it changes how everything feels to use. Just make sure that you do it right because you don't want DNS problems. Once you have internal DNS working and you want to take things to the next level, a local reverse proxy server like Nginx Proxy Manager is worth looking at. This lets you assign clean domain names to your services and get a valid SSL certificate for them so you're not dealing with browser warnings every single time you load a page. The big caveat here is that this works best if you have your own domain name, which isn't something everyone's going to have by default if I'm being honest. So this isn't going to be for everybody on day one, but it's worth knowing about because it makes things so much easier as soon as it's configured. Now for the productivity side. Nextcloud is the go-to here in my opinion. It's basically your own private cloud storage. You can file sync, shared folders, calendar, contacts, collaboration, has just about everything that you need. It's genuinely useful if that kind of workflow fits what you're looking to do. With that said, I'm going to be honest here. It's also a lot more to maintain than a lot of the other applications on this list. If you just want simple file syncing between devices and a NAS, something like Synology Drive if you're running a Synology NAS, or even SyncThing if you want something general, might be a better starting point for you. Nextcloud is great. I've used it for a while now and I really like it, but you have to make sure you're actually going to utilize its features. Once that is all set up, a dashboard like Homar or Heimdall or Homepage, it's not totally necessary, but once you have 5 or 6 services running, having one place that links all of them is very convenient. It's also a good way to get a quick sense of what's online and what isn't, because most of the dashboards have online monitoring directly built into them. It's not something I'd prioritize on day one, but once you have a few things set up, it takes maybe like 20 to 30 minutes to configure one of these, and it makes navigating a lot easier. Home Assistant deserves its own mention, and we're going to get into smart devices here for a second. So if you have lights, thermostats, sensors, locks, all of that is considered smart. Home Assistant is one of the best reasons to run a home lab because you can consolidate everything. And when I say consolidate everything, I really mean that it pulls devices from different ecosystems into one place and lets you manage them centrally. It also gives you automation options that most of the individual apps themselves don't come close to from a features and functionality perspective. It's not something that everyone will benefit from, especially if you're managing only a few devices. But if home automation is something you care about, this is the app that brings all of that together. It's also one of those apps where people start with a few devices and end up buying a ton more, and I can tell you that from firsthand experience. And it ultimately ends up turning into something that you rely on every single day. Now let's move on to backups. And I know it's not the most exciting part, but this is genuinely one of the most important sections. If you're running virtual machines in Proxmox Backup Server is one of the few things that you should try and set up immediately. It handles incremental backups of your VMs, deduplication, scheduled runs, and most importantly, it's what lets you experiment without the fear of breaking something. If something was to break, you would restore from the backup and be back in a few minutes. Running VMs without a backup strategy is just asking for something to go wrong. And doing it this way, meaning utilizing deduplication, ensures that you're maximizing storage space. For me, my current deduplication is a 30, which means that for every 100 gigabytes of backups, it would be the equivalent of about 3 terabytes if it wasn't utilizing deduplication. Trust me, if you're running Proxmox, it's worth setting this up. Now, let's say you wanted to back up actual computers on your network, like Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. UrBackup is a solid option that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. It's straightforward to set up and it runs in the background without needing much attention. If you're running a first-party NAS, there are options like Synology's Active Backup for Business that you can look into as well. And to be honest, that might be a better option if you have that device. But you need that device where UrBackup is a third-party tool that you can install on different hardware. Overall, it's really helpful to have full operating system backups, and it's something you should look into, especially if you have a NAS device. Speaking of NAS devices, and this is a little unrelated, but you should also make sure that you're configuring snapshots on your NAS device, which basically locks your data at a point in time and allows you to restore that data if needed. It does depend on the file system that you're using, but if it supports it, you should absolutely make sure it's configured. And another disclaimer would be that you've probably heard it before, but RAID is not a backup. RAID protects against a drive failure, but it does not protect against accidental deletion, ransomware, a misconfiguration, or a corrupted file system. You need actual backups of your NAS device, preferably to a separate location. If you're interested in seeing an offsite NAS backup strategy with TrueNAS, I have a video on that I'll leave in the description. But next, we're going to start talking about monitoring. Uptime Kuma is the easiest monitoring solution for beginners. You point it at your services and it checks whether they're responding. If something goes down, you get a notification instead of finding out later that your media server's been offline for 2 days and you didn't know about it. It's simple and it's easy to set up and it does exactly what it says. Beszel does that as well, but it kind of goes a little deeper. It monitors the devices themselves, meaning CPU usage, memory, disk space, network. So where Uptime Kuma tells you a service is down, Beszel tells you your disk is at 94% or your CPU has been pegged for the last hour. They complement each other well, and both are lightweight enough that there's no real reason not to run them. As your home lab grows, monitoring becomes something that's more and more important. And while it's not the most interesting topic, it's one of the most important. On the authentication side, this is the part that people skip and then regret. Before we get to that, a simple security suggestion. Not everything we are discussing today should share a admin password, meaning every service in an ideal world will have a different password. If you have important services running, they need real authentication, multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, separate accounts for separate services. It's boring, but it matters. Once you have several web apps running and you're tired of maintaining separate logins for all of them, Authentic or an SSO tool is worth looking into. Authentic is a self-hosted single sign-on solution. You set up one account with strong authentication, and then you can use it to log into multiple services. It makes everything feel more organized, and it genuinely improves security. With that said, I'm going to be honest here, Authentic has a pretty big learning curve. It's probably not something I'd suggest on day one, but once you have a solid base of services running, it's a natural next step to take. I have a video on this if you're interested in setting it up. Now, remote access. This is the last piece, and it's what takes this from something you can only use at home to something you can actually rely on no matter where you are. A VPN server is the most common approach. WireGuard is fast, lightweight, and the right choice for most people in my opinion. OpenVPN is older and slower, but more widely supported. But with that said, I'd still lean towards WireGuard. Both require port forwarding on your router to work, which means they won't work well if you're behind double NAT, like if your ISP gives you a router that you can't control. Tailscale sidesteps that entirely. It works without any port forwarding, it's easy to set up, and for most home lab users, it's one of the fastest paths to remote access. If you want to go further though, Zero Trust Networking, meaning something like TwinGate, who is sponsoring this portion of the video, is worth understanding and something that I find myself relying on more and more. The idea is that instead of putting yourself on the network and then accessing services, you grant access to specific services for specific users, and then you allow them to access that and only that. It doesn't require port forwarding, and it doesn't have a VPN tunnel in the traditional sense. It's a more lockdown approach, and honestly, it's the direction this space is heading in my opinion. Rather than giving access to an individual user and allowing them to access everything, you pick specific services or even just ports and allow them to access that. This ensures that users can only access the specific services you want, and it's not broad coverage. I keep bringing up TwinGate because it's one of the services I've grown to love. And I think that as time goes on, Zero Trust Networking in general is the direction everyone will eventually head. And I really like TwinGate's implementation, especially for home users and small businesses. So now that we went over everything, let me give you the order I'd actually install this in. Start with something that gives you immediate value, media, photos, or file syncing. That would generally be Jellyfin, Immich, or Nextcloud. Pick whichever solves the biggest problem for you right now. Get it running, use it for a week, and see if it sticks. Then I'd add data protection, and truthfully, I'd call this 1A and 1B, meaning it should, in a perfect world, be done at the same time as the application installs. Set up Proxmox backup server if you're on Proxmox, and something for your local machines. Then add monitoring with Uptime Kuma and Beszel. Make sure your authentication is solid and you'll have a fully functional home lab. After the baseline is configured, add your supporting services, something like Pi-hole or AdGuard Home with internal DNS and a dashboard to access all of your services. Pi-hole or AdGuard Home improves the whole network and literally every single device on it. Once it's implemented, you can look into an internal reverse proxy server if you have a domain by using something like Nginx Proxy Manager. With a stable base, you can then start adding things on top of it. Home automation, if that's relevant to you. Authentic for single sign-on. AI tools. Basically, the more complex options that are generally nicer to have than necessary. All of that can come later once your foundation is solid. And finally, don't forget remote access. Truthfully, this is something you should do sooner than later because it makes whatever is implemented on the network accessible remotely, but it really depends on the user and when they need that access. Some should probably do it right away and others can wait. So here's the quick version of everything. Install useful applications first, set up protection, add remote access once the lab is stable, and save the advanced stuff for later. The best home lab isn't the one with the most services running. It's the one with a few useful services you actually trust, you actually use, and you know exactly what they're doing. That's worth more than a full dashboard of containers that are mostly just running in the background doing nothing. I hope you got some value out of this video, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.